Good morning, dear students. In the previous 3 classes, we have been discussing about the cutting tool designs. We have discussed the nomenclature of a single pile cutting tool and various cutting angles. The design criteria for cutting angles also discussed in the previous classes. Once we have the cutting tool with us, we can grind the required cutting angles such as back rake or side rake or relief angles or clearance angles. Now in today's class we are going to basically design a cutting tool as such. So the cutting tools are available in the market in a definite proportions or standard sizes, but how a standard size is achieved, that is the actual designing part. So the designing of a single point cutting tool, that is a turning tool, and also design of a twist drill bit, it is a multi-point cutting tool, and designing of a plain milling cutter, it is also multi-point cutting tool. These 3 things we will be discussing in this class. First of all, design of a turning tool includes determination of the cross section of the shank, length of the overhang. We know that the tool will be having the section shank part and the total length part, and also the tool is having a cross section. So you can see this is a single point cutting tool where you have the complete length. This is called the length of the tool, and this is called the cross section of the cutting tool. So these cutting tools, they are available in the market in a standard sizes such as half an inch cross section, half by half, or 3/4, various sizes. So this is the breadth of the cross section and this is the height of the cross section, and you can see this is all the entire length of the cutting tool. So the length and the breadth and the height, these 3 dimensions, they will be deciding the design of a particular cutting tool. So depending upon the cutting forces required, the cutting operation that is going to be taken up, we have number of cross sections and the lengths of the cutting tools in the market available, and we have to select it. So before selection we have to design which one is the right one, or what is the required cutting force, and that cutting force is attainable or that is to be persisted by this cutting tool. Now we see how the cutting tool design is all about. Size of the shank is determined on the strength and rigidity considering the tool loaded as a cantilever. First of all, the tool will be assumed as loaded as a cantilever beam. It is a turning tool, you know. The turning tool will be operable in all lathe machines, and a tool post will be there, and the cutting tool will be held inside the tool post, and we will be clamping the tool with the help of a number of nuts and bolts. So the one end of the cutting tool is rigidly fixed. The other end of the cutting tool, it will be used for machining purposes. That's why it is considered as loaded in the form of a cantilever beam. Now this figure will be illustrating. So this is a cutting tool. The cross section of the cutting tool is this much, the breadth is B, and the height of the cross section is capital H, and we have the length. This is the entire length, but here for the designing purpose, the length which is actually bearing the cutting force, that is called L. This L is the overhang arm length. So the one end of the tool is here, it is inside the tool post, this is clamped. So the other end of the tool, this is the actual cutting edge. This cutting edge is responsible for doing the machining operations. So you have a cutting force Fc that is applied vertically in the downward direction, whether it is an orthogonal cutting or an oblique cutting. So we have discussed what are the cutting forces, what is the resultant force. Depending upon the resultant force, we assume that the resultant force Fc is always perpendicular downwards, and this is given a name Fc. So we have to arrive at these three things. First of all, calculate what is the cutting force that is to be applied, on the cutting tool. It depends again on the speed of operation, the material, chip thickness, feed and everything. So taking those parameters into consideration, we first of all calculate the cutting force. It may be with the help of a dynamometer, or we have some empirical relations to arrive at this equation or this cutting force Fc. So with this cutting force Fc, the length, overhanging length arm, because this length of the tool is actually supporting this force, by virtue of this force a bending moment is applied on this cutting tool. So this length L and the breadth and h, that is height, these two are also carrying the actual bending moment that is applied on the cutting tool. So we see the equations related to this design. Bending moment due to cutting, this will be given by Fc into L. So Fc is the cutting force, L is, it is the overhang arm length. This is whatever length that is outside the supports of the tool post, that is taken as the overhanging arm length. This is small l. The bending moment actually that is applied on the cutting tool is capital M. Now every cutting tool material will be having some material property that is called the maximum strength of the material, or you can say this is the maximum bending moment permitted by the tool. So depending upon the material property, every material will be resisting the applied bending moment on the tool without failure. So that is called the maximum permissible bending moment. This is the material property. So this maximum bending moment, that is MR, this is bending moment resisting. So resisting bending moment you can call it, and this resisting bending moment, this will be given by an equation which is Fb into I by Y. Here Fb is called the permissible stress, permissible bending stress, or the maximum permissible bending stress of the cutting tool material. So it will be varying from one material to another material. We have number of cutting tool materials such as high carbon steels, high speed steels, ceramics, and so and so. There are number of cutting tools, and every material will be having a particular maximum permissible bending stress. This is newtons per mm square Fb. So if Fb is the maximum permissible bending stress for the particular material, and I is the moment of inertia of the cross section. We have seen the cross section of the cutting tool as B and H, breadth and height. So if B and H are the cross section of the cutting tool, then I is responsible for resisting this bending action or bending load. So any beam which is tried to be bent, this will be resisted by the property called the moment of inertia. So the moment of inertia of the cross section of the tool, this is again the units are mm to the power of 4, and this is given by the equation BH cube by 12 for a rectangular cross section. This is BH cube by 12. B is breadth, H is height, and this is a standard formula for finding out the moment of inertia of a rectangular cross section about its centroidal axis. Now y, in the equation you have seen y is also there. What is y? Y is distance from neutral axis. So the cross section, if you take it as a rectangular cross section B by H, you have a neutral axis which is passing through the midpoint of the cross section, and the distance from this neutral axis, that distance is called the y, that is taken as y, which will be half of the actual height of the cross section. H is the cross section height and h by 2 is the half of the section, and y will be taken the value of h by 2. This is again in mm. So if by knowing the maximum permissible bending stress, the moment of inertia, and the distance from the neutral axis of the cross section, if you substitute these values, we will be getting the maximum permissible or resisting bending moment of the cutting tool material. So if we arrive at this equation once we substitute those values of I and Y FB here in this MR. So resisting bending moment MR, this is given by FB into BH square by 6. So this is the resisting bending moment. We know the already applied bending moment is there, capital M. Capital M is given by cutting force Fc multiplied by overhang arm length, and these two are to be at the most equal. All the time the resisting bending moment should be greater than the applied bending moment, then only the cutting tool will be working safely or satisfactorily. Once the resisting bending moment is reduced or it decreases below the applied bending moment, then there is a chance for the material to fail. So the maximum limiting condition is equating these two things. So the applied bending moment M and the resisting bending moment MR, these two are equated, and by equating we get this equation Fc is into L is equal to Fb into Bh square by 6. So this is the applied bending moment on the cutting tool by virtue of the cutting forces and overhanging arm length, and Fb Bh square by 6, this is the material property which is resisting the applied bending moment. So by equating these two values and by properly taking the proportional values of the H, B and L, because cutting tools are available both in square cross section as well as rectangular cross sections. Square cross section means the height and the breadth both will be equal, whereas rectangular cross section you will be having height different from the breadth B. So there is a definite proportion existing between the breadth and the height as well as the overhang arm length L. So these are the generally taken proportions. H is taken 1.6 times B. Likewise L is equal to 2H, that is length is overhang arm length, this is 2 times H, which is in turn is equal to 3.2 B. So by taking suitable proportions between L, H and B and substituting the values of L, B and H in this equation Fc into L is equal to Fb into Bh square by 6, we can get the values of L, B and H. We can get the values of L, B and H. So that will be the final value of the breadth, height as well as overhanging arm length L. So this is the one type of load, that is the tool is assumed as a cantilever beam and the cutting force is applied vertically downwards. So by that force we have taken the bending moment into consideration. And another criteria to design a cutting tool is measuring the deflection. So deflection is also existing there. Whenever a cutting force is applied on the tool, and the cutting force is pulling it downwards. Naturally, all the cutting tools, because it is loaded as a cantilever beam, and the free end of the cantilever beam, that is the free end of the cutting tool, that will be obviously deflected from its original position. Even though it is deflected, the deflection, the degree of deflection, if it is within the permissible limits of the material property of the cutting tool, then the cutting tool will be satisfactorily doing the job. So, taking the deflection of the cutting tool into consideration, then also we can design the L, B and H. So, initially here L, B and H, they are taking the bending moment action only into consideration, and the deflection is also can be calculated. It can be calculated by using this formula, delta T is equal to Fc into L cube divided by 3 times EI. So, here L is overhang arm length, Fc is the cutting force, and 3 EI, E is the Young's modulus of the cutting tool material. Again, the cutting tool material, depending upon the material, the modulus, Young's modulus will be varying. So, Young's modulus of the material is taken as E, and I is the moment of inertia of the cross section of the cutting tool. So, substituting the values of these Fc, L, E and I, we can get what is the maximum deflection that is obtained by virtue of applying a force Fc on the cutting tool. And as per the material property, every tool, every material will be having a maximum deflection permissible. So, the permissible deflection, say that is delta P, permissible delta P deflection is there, and this is delta T is the obtained deflection by virtue of the cutting force Fc. And when you compare these two values, the permissible deflection should be always, it should be greater than the actual deflection. So, then only the cutting tool without fail it will be working. So, if the permissible deflection is exceeding, or if the actual deflection exceeding the permissible deflection, then the material ought to fail. So, taking those deflections and the overhanging load as cantilever load into consideration, that is bending moment load, and these two loads are taken, and the safe values with a particular degree of safety, we arrive at the values of L, H and B, that will be the final values, and that are the those are the dimensions of the single point cutting tool. Now, we go to the next type of cutting tool, that is multi-point cutting tool. So, the basic example of a multi-point cutting tool is a drill bit. So, we see what is a drill bit, what are the various parts of a drill bit, how it functions, and the basic points involved in designing a drill bit. As we know, we have been operating with drill bit in a number of workshop practicals also. We have seen drill bit number of times, but some of the topics, some of the theory regarding the drill bit, it is not so clearly understandable. So, we will see what is a drill bit first of all. It is a multi-point hole producing tool. It is a multi-point tool, hole producing tool, and when precision is required, reaming or boring follows. And HCS, HSS and cemented carbides are used. So, it is a multi-point cutting tool. Basic purpose is to make a hole. And secondly, the hole that is produced by a drill bit, it is not accurate. It is only a rough hole. So, when you want a precision, the whole degree of precision is required. Then every drilling operation is to be followed by either reaming or boring operation. The reaming is the finishing of already drilled hole. So reaming gives you an accurate hole size. Boring is enlarging the already drilled hole. So using a single point cutting tool such as boring tool, we can enlarge it or we can get a precise hole diameter. So precision wise, if you look at boring and reaming, these two are the right operations, but drilling is not a precise operation. And the material that is generally used for all drill bits are high carbon steels, high speed steels and cemented carbines. These are the generally used material. Now we see what is drilling operation. So drilling operation is, here there is a tool, tool rotates and removes the material in the form of chip. So it is a multi-point cutting tool, tool will be rotating. So you will be fixing to a quill or an arbor, and that shaft will be rotating, so by which the cutting tool is also rotating, and while it is rotating it removes the material in the form of chips. And formation of chip in the drilling is quite complex. So as with the single point cutting tool, we have seen how a chip is formed, and studying the chip formation is also quite simple in a single point cutting tool. But here in the drilling operation, formation of the chip is not that much easy, it is a complex operation. Why it is complex? Chip is formed by two different geometries, one is cutting lips and other is cutting edge. So the operation, the chip formation is complex because the chip is formed by two different geometries of the cutting tool, that is drill bit. So we have cutting lips, one part, and another cutting edge is called the chisel edge. So the cutting lips as well as the chisel edge, these two together will be producing the chip. So studying what is the role of a chisel edge, what is the role of a cutting lip is quite difficult thing. We see various parts of a cutting tool, that is drill bit. So here first of all we see this is a drill bit. What is a drill bit? We have seen it number of times. So this is called a drill bit, and there are number of parts in this drill bit. If you closely observe, every part, every side will be having a particular name to call. So we will be using it very often. Various names involved, various sides names involved with this cutting tool, they are hardly known. So we see first of all, here you will be looking at a helical groove. See, this is the helical groove. So this groove, that is generally referred as helical flute. This is the flute of a drill bit. If you observe from the one end of the tool, you can clearly number the flutes also. There will be two flutes here. So with this tool, there are two helical flutes. So whenever a drill bit is provided with two helical flutes, that cutting tool or drill bit is called twist drill. So when I say only two, three or more is also there, that is also possible. So when it is a case with a two flute drill bit, that is called a twist drill. So in all the cases, the basic nomenclature of a drill bit will be the same. Only thing is the length may be varying, the helix angle will be varying, or the chisel edge angle will be varying, or the lip angle will be varying, or the number of flutes will be varying, and depending upon all these things we will be having thousands and thousands of types of drill bits, and above all, every drill bit is measured with the basic cross sectional diameter, that is called the drill size. So this is a half an inch drill bit, that is 12 mm drill bit, otherwise you can call it. So the basic diameter, that is the diameter of the hole that it can produce, that is called the size of the drill bit. Okay, we will see the various nomenclature of a drill bit. So here this is a helical fluid, provides rake angle and passage for chip removal, and it results in a thin center section connecting two large helical bodies. So we have seen just now here the helical fluids. What is the purpose of helical fluid? It provides rake angle as well as a chip formation. So rake angle is basic angle. In the beginning of the class we have discussed relief angles and rake angles. These two are the basic angles responsible for removing the material. So this helical groove, this basically provides a rake angle so that the material will be cut, and this rake angle removes the material, but the cutting tool is advancing into the material, forming hole. So the chip that is formed, that is to be slowly flowing through this flute only. So one is rake angle provision is given by the helical flute, and whatever chip that is formed, that is removed through this helical groove only. As the tool is rotating, the chip slowly moves up the flute and it will be coming out of the hole. If you see the cross section of the helical flute or this cutting tool, it results in a thin center. Here at the center the cross section is thin, and this cross sectional thin center, it is connected with two large helical bodies on the two sides of the center. See, the cross section at the center is very thin because of the flute. Continuously if you go through the length of the drill bit, the thin cross section will be there, and this thin cross section, this is connected with two large bodies of helical bodies on the two ends of the section. So a small ball connected with two big balls on the other side, on each side, and that assembly is rotating. And that is the actual basic principle of a drill bit. So helical flute is the basic thing which is responsible for giving rake angle as well as chip removal, because at the thin section at the center, the two large bodies are attached to this thin center, and this will be rotating, and the large two helical bodies, they will be having a tendency to wind the thin section, because the complete assembly is rotating continuously. You see, it may be considered as a torsional spring, and tendency for a drill to wind is lessened by increasing rigidity, and also varying flute length or web thickness changes rigidity. So because the thin section at the center and the two large helical sections on the other side, on two sides, you can consider the complete thing as a spring. So when you apply a force, a torsional spring, that means rotationally when you apply, what happens at torsional spring, it winds and unwinds. When you apply a force, it winds. When you remove a force, it unwinds. Likewise, a drill bit is also compared with a torsional spring, because the two helical objects are connected to the two ends of the thin section, and it is rotating. The tendency is that the drill bit to wind is, it can be wind, unwind. So this winding and unwinding is to be taken care. So that's what it is here. The second point here in this thing is tendency for a drill to wind is lessened by increasing rigidity. This tendency of rigidity is lessened only if you improve the rigidity of the cutting tool material. With more rigidity, the tendency to wind will be lessened. With less rigidity, the tendency to wind will be increased. So how the rigidity is improved? It can be improved in two ways. You can vary the flute length, you can vary the web thickness. Now we see here in the drill bit what is a flute length and what is a web thickness. See, here the flute is starting and up to here the flute will be continuously helically or spirally it is moving along the axis of the drill bit. So the complete axial length from one end to the other end of the flute, that is called the flute length. And we see the web thickness. Web thickness, if you go through, see through the other side, the end view of the drill bit, this part is called the web. The thin section prolonging from one end to the other end, that is called the web section. So this web will be having some thickness. This is the thickness of the web. So either by increasing the thickness of the web or by reducing the length of the flute, in two ways we can increase or improve the rigidity. With more web thickness, rigidity is more and tendency to wind is lessened. With less flute length, that is also the rigidity is improving and reducing the tendency to wind. So always in the drilling operation, it should be kept in mind while designing a bit that the tendency to get wind up is to be lessened. So it is obtained by either reducing the flute length, varying the flute length. If you improve the flute length, the tendency to wind will be increasing. Likewise, the web thickness, we can increase the web thickness. But the problem with increasing web thickness is, if you go on increasing the web thickness, the area available for the chip to flow will be reducing. So more chip area is not there. So we have to strike a balance between the web thickness and the area available or the space available for the chip to flow, that is flute length. So by properly balancing these two and also by properly devising the length of the flute, we can vary the tendency to get wind. Now we see the nomenclature of a tool, that is tool bit. First one is axis, second one is body, third one is chisel, back taper, chisel edge angle, cutting edges. So the basic nomenclature, it is defined with all these parameters. You have the axis, the body, the chisel edge, back taper, chisel edge angles and cutting edges. And we have seen what is a flute here. Flute, helical or straight grooves formed in the body of the drill to provide cutting lips. So the basic cutting lips, that is the machining operation, is done or it is initiated with this cutting lips. And here we look at this figure, the same thing which we have seen in the actual drill bit, that is done as an orthographic projection. So this is the actual flutes. Now you have the overall length from one end to the other end, and you have the actual body. This end is called the shank, and also you have the neck here. Some of the tools will be provided with neck. It is not a compulsory one. Some other tools may not be given a neck there. and the shank is also here, it is a straight shank, and tapered shanks are also there in some cases. So this is the actual diameter of the shank as well as the drill bit. Now you see the helix angle. Whatever the flute is in the form of a helix. So the helical angle that is subtended with reference to the axis of the drill, that is called the helix angle, and this helix angle is varied. It is varied and it depends upon the chip formation and various other parameters of the machining. And the other thing is we have lip relief angle, which we will be studying. Now this figure shows the cross section of the actual thing, drill bit. So in the cross section wise, see, this is the actual lip that is formed. There are two lips. So this is the actual diameter, and in order, this is the cutting edge, and in order that it is given with a relief or the clearance, it is given as the body clearance diameter. This is the clearance that is provided. So the clearance is there for the two lips or the two cutting edges. This entire thing is called the lip, and the width of the lip, that is called the land, and actual diameter, that is inside diameter, that is called the clearance diameter. So these are the figure, this is the figure from the end view which we have seen in the actual drill bit also. So you can identify where is land, what is body dia clearance and clearance diameter. Now we define a helix angle, the angle made by the leading edge of the land with a plane containing the axis of the drill bit. The angle made by the leading edge of the land with a plane containing the axis of the drill. Now you can see this is the helix, actual helix is, this is the helix. So you have an axis and this is the leading edge. If you prolong this leading edge and measure the angle subtended with reference to the axis, that is called the helix angle. Helix angle is mainly responsible for the rate of chip removal, and the same thing you can see in the figure here. What is helix? This is the leading edge. This leading edge is continued till the flute length. So this angle, this leading edge and the axis, these two, when it is projected onto a plane parallel to the axis of the drill bit, that is called helix angle. Now what is a lip? We will see. The cutting edges of two flute drill extending from the chisel edge to the periphery. The cutting edges of a two flute drill extending from the chisel edge to the periphery. Now we have to locate in this figure what is a chisel edge, what is a lip. So the center line which you can see here, it is an inclined line, and this is the actual cutting edge, that is called the chisel edge. This edge is called the chisel edge, and these are called the cutting edges. This is the cutting edge, then this other side is also the cutting edge. So the cutting edges, these are extending from the chisel edge. They are extending from the chisel edge. So this is called the lip. This is called the lip. This is called other lip. There are two lips. So chisel edge, this is the cutting edge, these are the lips. So cutting edges of a two flute drill extending from the chisel edge to the periphery. So this you can say this is the lip. This is the other lip. These two are the lips. The center one is the chisel edge. Okay. Now we want to move on to the next thing, is the point. The cutting edge of a drill made up of the ends of the land and the web. Cutting end of a drill made up of the ends of the lands and the web. That is called the point. And it resembles a cone. So here you can see again. So this is the part which is, this is actually resembling a cone. So this entire thing is called a point. Of course, it is not completely a cone. It resembles cone. That's all. So you have an inclined surface on the other two sides, and this entire thing together is called the point. So it is made up of the ends of the lands and the webs. So this is the point. There is a conical section at the end, that is called the point of the cutting tool, or that is drill bit. The angle subtended by this point is called the point angle. You know the angles of subjection. The angle included between the cutting lips projected upon a plane parallel to the drill axis and parallel to the two cutting lips. This is called the point angle. Point angle will be varied. The included angle between two lips, you can say, that is called the point angle. So here you can see the point angle is. This is the complete part is called the point, and the two lips, they are included here, and this angle is called the point angle. Okay. Now we move on to the other topic, that is next point is the web, the central portion of the body that joins the lands. The extreme end of the web forms the chisel edge on a two-flue drill. We have seen what web is, and the thickness of the web is thickness at the point. So at the end, what is the thickness? Whatever thickness that is there at the end, that is called the web thickness. So we will be reducing or increasing the web thickness to vary the rigidity of the cutting tool or the drill bit. So you can see here what is web. This is called the web. This point, this line is called the chisel edge, and this is called the actual lip. This is another lip. Okay. So this is forming actual cutting edge. This is the one cutting edge, other cutting edge, and this chisel edge is making an angle with the lip. So this angle is called the chisel edge angle. The chisel edge is making an angle with the lip, and that angle is called the chisel edge angle. This angle, entire angle, is chisel edge angle. And in order to give a clearance, a margin is provided. This margin is having both height and breadth. The height and breadth of the margin at the end of the lip is given. That is called the height and breadth of the margin. Now force estimation and other things are getting with the help of the equations called empirical relations. So first of all, axial thrust is to be calculated. Fa is given by kd f into f to the power of 0.7 newtons, and the torque, that is T, is obtained by c into d 1.9 f to the power of 0.8 newton meters, and feed rate, here in this equation f is the feed rate and d is the diameter of the drill bit, and k and c, these are two other constants that depend upon the material. So by using these two equations, axial thrust as well as torque acting, these two will be estimated, because these two are the things actually required in order to design a drill bit. Now design of a drill is actually containing knowing the diameter of the drill, point angle, helix angle, relief cutting edge angle, web thickness, land width, and back taper. Back taper is that all the drill bits will be tapered backwards. As you go along the length of the drill bit, the diameter slowly tapers gradually tapers so that the tool may be entering into the material without any direct contact. And back taper generally given varies from 0.3 to 0.1 mm per 100 mm length of length, and web thickness is high speed steels 0.2 to 0.25 D for diameters from 6 to 10 mm, and from diameters more than 10 mm it is 0.2 to 0.26 diameter. And if it is carbon tipped tooth drill bit, the web thickness is 0.27 to 0.3 diameter when diameter is less than 10 mm, and when it is more than 10 mm the web thickness is taken as 0.2 to 0.26 the diameter. And likewise the land width also is obtained 0.62 times diameter, 0.59 times diameter, 0.58 times diameter, where diameter is from 3 to 8, from 8 to 10, and when it is more than 20. And margin, as you said, the width and height, both two parameters will be there for margin, and width is obtained by 0.06 diameter to 0.07 diameter, height of the margin is 0.02 diameter to 0.03 diameter. Now after completing this drill bit, we have another cutting tool which is milling cutter. It is a plain milling cutter. A plain milling cutter we have already discussed in the first class itself, milling machine. And how a plain milling cutter is designed. The basic parameters required in plain milling cutter are size of the cutter, land width, fluids and angles. And of course the material of the tool is also there. And the size of the cutter is obtained by these relations. First of all, the diameter. D is the diameter, capital D. Small d plus 2 times m plus 2h is the total diameter obtained, where small d is the arbor diameter, m is small m here, the small m is thickness of the body, and h is the height of the teeth. So this is a plain milling cutter, a milling cutter having number of teeth. So the total diameter, this is the overall diameter, this is the small d, and we have the m is the thickness of the body as well as the height of the teeth. These three things will be taken into consideration for arriving at the size of the cutter, the total diameter of the cutter. The other thing is land width. Purpose is to provide sufficient strength to the cutting point, and it ranges from 0.8 mm to 1.6 mm. And also number of teeth, because every milling cutter will be having number of teeth, and it is having a specific relation. Z is given by m root square root of capital D. M is a constant, 1.05 for coarse teeth and 2 for fine teeth, and capital D is the diameter of the cutter. And finally, the tool signature, all the various angles in the cutting tool or the milling cutter, when they are given a specific order, and that thing is called the tool signature: axial rake, radial rake, face relief angle, peripheral relief, face cut edge angle, peripheral cut edge angle, chamfer. These 7 parameters, when they are completely in the order if they are provided, that is called tool signature. So with this thing we have completed the cutting tools part of the tool design. We have seen how a single point cutting tool is designed, turning tool. Secondly, we have seen how a drill bit is designed, a drill bit, twist drill. And thirdly, the basics of a plain milling cutter design. That's all.